committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My apologies. I'm Teresa Luna, and I am the Director of the Department of Administration, and I'm here to testify in favor of House Bill 404 and also to help clear up some misinformation. As you know, the Department of Administration is tasked with managing and maintaining a variety of state properties, including most of those located on the Capitol Mall and several others throughout the state. When the Occupy Boise group informed us of their intent to build an encampment on the state's property, on the annex property, we searched Idaho statutes, our policies, and our rules to find something that we could point to that would allow us to deny use of the property for this type of activity. What we found is that there's very specific guidelines regarding how we can use the buildings that we manage, excuse me, specific guidelines about how we can use the parking lots that we manage, and specific guidelines about how the Capitol building could be used and how the grounds directly adjacent to the Capitol building could be used, but the law was silent on the grounds that surround the Capitol Mall. After consulting with our Deputy Attorney General and law enforcement, it was determined that there was nothing available to stop this type of activity on properties that the department manages. It's for this reason that we support House Bill 404. We have already received inquiries from other groups regarding like properties that they might set up camp, and without the passage of this bill, this type of activity could sprout up at any number of department-managed properties, including the grounds surrounding the LBJ building, the PTC building, the Supreme Court building, and the Borough building, not to mention opening up sites across the state. There are also a few pieces of information I'd like to clarify. First and foremost, the Occupy group did not ask permission to set up camp on the state's property, nor did we grant them permission, nor did we issue them a permit of any type. There is no agreement between Occupy Boise and the Department of Administration. There have also been a few comments about the grounds of the annex, implying that perhaps we shouldn't be concerned about any damage to the grounds because they're going to be turned into a parking lot. That is not true. I believe that those folks are basing that on a long, outdated capital improvement plan, which has not been in effect for quite some time. The annex building is not abandoned. It is under restoration and is slated to become the new home of the Idaho Law Learning Center. Perhaps most importantly is also those grounds are also the backdrop of Idaho's Fallen Soldier Memorial, and we would never tear out those grounds and surround the memorial with a parking lot. I'd also like to address the question of the fiscal impact and what would happen should this bill not pass. To date, costs related directly to the encampment have cost the Department of Administration nearly $9,000. Because of the numerous security issues we are regularly dealing with, we have hired an extra security officer for the next several months, and we just recently paid almost $800 to have graffiti removed from the LBJ building. The Department of Administration for several years has accommodated hundreds of requests from groups to use the Capitol Mall properties for events, for protests, for vigils, and marches. We regularly provide electricity, PA systems, podiums, and security as necessary at these events. We're not trying to end freedom of speech. We're trying to end camping on admin properties. We simply don't have the authority nor the resources to deal with this type of activity, not here on the Capitol Mall, and certainly not on those properties we manage across the state. We encourage you to pass House Bill 404, and with that, Mr. Chairman, I will stand for questions.
Are there questions? Representative Andrus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Teresa, over yesterday and Friday, I thought that I understood that permission had been granted by the Occupy people to grant to stay there from the Department of Administration, and that is apparently not correct.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Andrus, that is not correct. There was no permission granted.
Further questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Representative King.
Thank you. So, Teresa, there was no communication between you and the Occupy people before they started over there?
Mr. Chairman, Representative King, the Occupy Boise group sent us a letter on October 31st stating that they would be commencing an indefinite vigil on the grounds beginning November 5th. that they had prepared an operational plan to ensure that both the public's and participants' health and safety had been addressed, and that we should see this letter as a courtesy notification only. We then met with the group to try to set some boundaries as best we could, given our lack of authority, and specifically because Veterans Day was soon approaching, and we knew that that site was going to see some heavy traffic over those next few days. So we did meet with them, but we did not give them permission. They knew they didn't have permission. They also knew that we didn't have anything that could stop them from doing so.
Can I follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Representative King.
So there was no conversation about when are you going to be gone? When will this, how long will this last?
Mr. Chairman, Representative King, no, there was not.
Another question, Mr.
Representative King.
Thank you. So I also understand that the graffiti, the guy that did the graffiti on the LBJ building was not with the Occupy movement. Did you, that's what I read in the paper. Is that incorrect?
Mr. Chairman, Representative King, he did, when arrested, he did identify himself as a member of the Occupy movement.
But they didn't agree that he was,
King.
they didn't, I'm sorry, but they didn't, he did, the occupiers said they had never seen him, right? Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, Representative King, I don't know that they said they ever saw them, but through our actions with the Occupy Boise group, part of their organizational structure is that nobody is in charge. So as we've had these issues over and over again, whether it was vandalism or any of the other multitude of issues we've dealt with, when we have communicated, and we do communicate with the group regularly, weekly at least, and usually daily, it's hard to get anybody to take responsibility for the actions of the group. And what we get is, we don't condone that type of behavior, but that is the type of behavior we are seeing since the encampment has started.
Another question, Mr.
Representative King.
So what kind of damage has been done, other than the graffiti? Has there been, when I go over there, I don't see a lot of trash, so I was just wondering if you, tell me about that.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, Representative King, we have dealt with theft, with vandalism, with violence, with trespassing, all of those things since the encampment started, directly related to the encampment.
Thank you very much.
Further questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Crane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Director Luna. One concern that I have, or I'm wrestling with, is the emergency clause in the legislation. It's almost implied that the minute that the ink is dry on the governor's desk, that these people are going to be, forced off of this property. Have you guys thought about, if this is successful, passes the House, passes the Senate, and goes to the governor, is there any type of plan in place, and how much time these individuals would have to be off the premises?
Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman Crane, we have been visiting with local law enforcement about what a process like that would look like. We've also visited with the governor's office. Should this bill pass through the Senate, at that time, we would then begin posting notices that a bill is to go into effect shortly that would make camping a violation. That bill would sit on the governor's desk for a minimum of 3 days before it was signed, allowing us to give them a minimum of 3 days notice. And then at some point after that, we would begin looking at an eviction. But at the very least, folks will have 3 days notice that this law is due to be signed.
Thank you. Are there further questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Simpson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Teresa, you said that you had received a letter from the group announcing that they were going to set up an encampment indefinitely. But you had about a week notice, I believe, before the encampment was set up versus when you received the letter. Were there any attempts from the gentleman on the second floor maybe to issue an executive order, or did your department have any plans to maybe thwart that attempt, given the fact that the building's under renovation and is technically a construction zone?
Director Luna?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Simpson, we did discuss the letter from the Occupy Boise group. We did not discuss an executive order at that time, no.
Any further questions for Director Luna?
Mr. Chairman?
Representative
King.
King.
Yes. I'm sorry to continue to ask questions. the law library becomes somebody else's property, or does the law library become somebody else's property at some point? Is it going to be sold soon?
Director Luna?
Mr. Chairman, Representative King, no, it will continue to be under the management of the department.
Okay, another question?
Follow-up, Representative King.
Are they going to re-landscape?
Director Luna?
Mr. Chairman, Representative King, no. Those grounds will stay as is.
Okay, one other point I want to make.
Follow-up, Representative King.
I got an Attorney General's opinion, and he said all owners of the litter would have 7 days' notice of need to remove their property if House Bill 404 became law. So I just wanted to know what you said. It was 9 days after the governor? I forget what you said. And then would it add 7 days on top of that?
Director Luna, would you mind to maybe clarify the question I asked you in response to hers as well?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, Representative King, the bill would sit on the governor's desk for a minimum of 3 days before it was signed, and then we would give, so that would give him, let me back up. We would begin notifying the encampment group as soon as it goes through the Senate that the law is due to be signed. So it would sit on the governor's desk for a minimum of 3 days, giving them those 3 days, and then once the law is signed, we would then repost saying the law is now in effect, and give them a couple more days.
Thank you.
Representative Batt? Okay. Any further questions for Director Luna? Thank you very much, Teresa. Appreciate you being here. Does anybody have any questions? Brian Kane is here from the Attorney General's office to answer any potential legal questions. Would anyone have any questions for Director Kane, or Deputy Attorney General Kane? Hearing none, Representative Bedke, if you would like to go